I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z Podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of Retention as a Service agency, Electric. And today I'm talking with Dan Deren, senior partner manager at Klaviyo, who we've been working with for probably at least 2 years now, which seems like a long time, but really isn't, but it feels like a long time. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. As Brandon mentioned, I'm a senior partner manager at Klaviyo. Yeah, I really think it's only been 2 official years working together, but it's been a pretty momentous 2 years for you guys and us. So it's been pretty action-packed for us.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think you definitely, or Klaviyo as well, contributed a lot to our success and growth. And then, there's a whole host of, I think, agency partners that have contributed to yours as well. And it just touches on the whole sort of rising tides lifts all boat and why partnerships is so important in this ecosystem.
Yeah, totally agree. I say that phrase all the time. I also think something you guys have done in particular is align yourselves to our company's goals really, really well, especially when you look at how you utilize all the tech partners in our ecosystem. You guys take full advantage of how to not only use Klaviyo, but use 5-6 other softwares in tandem with us that all integrate and speak to each other, which just goes to show how well you know how to use our platform and squeeze all the juice out of it.
Yeah, I think that talk track sort of was created naturally on our end as well as on yours. It's just great that it happens to be so completely aligned. And now that we're sort of in sync on it, we can expand from there. But we've always talked about how you don't get the true value out of Klaviyo if you just use it to send emails and texts. You get the true value out of it if you're leveraging it as a CDP, basically. And then obviously that's what you guys are focused on. And then with the launch of Klaviyo One, so it all sort of synced up perfectly.
Right. Absolutely. I honestly think it's our greatest differentiator. It's the best competitive advantage in the market when looking at competitors. It's the breadth of integrations that we've built out with all the top players in our space. It gives merchants a lot of flexibility in what they can do with all the tools that they have. And you hit the nail on the head, right? We see ourselves today as a CDP. We're also launching a standalone CDP later this year, which we're really excited about, just to build on top of these capabilities even more. Really trying to get to a point where Klaviyo is really good at ingesting data and doing a lot with that data today. We got to be good at sending that data back out. And so with the investment in Shopify that we recently got, you're already seeing that integration become more of a two-way integration. You'll see that with our other tech partners. You'll see that with some 3PLs, more integrations to come on that side of things, and then a lot more UI for reporting within Klaviyo as well. And then we'll be ready to be a full CDP by then, but there's still some work to do there. Yeah,
I think I was chatting with somebody, it's either yesterday or late last week, about how it'd be great if there was one central zero-party data platform, because we are, the sort of the idea is there and the premise is right, but going out and I see the 3 main places we capture zero-party data is in quizzes, in post-purchase survey, and then in the reviews request process. And for a skincare brand, as an example, one of the main questions is always going to be, what's your skin type? But if somebody already answers that in the quiz, I don't want to ask them that in their post-purchase survey and in the review request process. I just want that to already show up so we can continue to build out these customer profiles. But right now, I have no way of knowing that. So they're asked at all 3 stages of the journey. And then also in Klaviyo, when we're building our segments, I have to say, well, if they answered the quiz this way, or if they answered the post-purchase survey this way, or if they did it this way. And so it's a little bit messy. And I don't in an ideal world, I'd say, oh, this person already answered the dry skin question. So now in the post-purchase survey, we're going to move on to question number 2 that we want to continue to build out their customer profile. And I think if Klaviyo is able to push that data back, ingest it from the quiz, then push it to the post-purchase survey partner and tell them, hey, don't ask this anymore because we need the next in terms of prioritization. That would really help brands get more intentional with their personalization strategy. And so That's my rant.
Yeah. I mean, you got it right. And that's exactly what we're trying to build, right? And your feedback and these types of things is so important, because if you look at like our entire customer base, such a small percentage is doing what you're doing, right? Which is why I love working with agencies. And we want to uncover that type of use case unless you were trying to do it, right? And so understanding that that's what you're trying to build and those are the challenges you're running into is super helpful for us in terms of building a roadmap, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we were to look at our roadmap right now, there's something along those lines there. But again, that's why we want to build a CDP, is just to give all the data that you need to be able to make those decisions and make those customer journeys and so on.
Yeah. So I guess, can you give everybody just a quick background on sort of how you got to this point? And would be fascinating if you could dive a little bit into like what the day-to-day looks like for a Klaviyo partner manager as well. And I think that'd be interesting for everybody to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So my birthday, March 12th, in March will mark 4 years to the day of being at Klaviyo. I started at Klaviyo on my 25th birthday, which was exciting. I came in as an inbound BDR. The story of how I found out about Klaviyo is funny. We were a very small company. I was actually employee number 200 right on the dot at the time when I joined. And my brother was a sales rep at a competitor called Zayas. So he introduced me to one of his friends who's still a sales rep here, Will McKinley. And I got in on the ground floor as an inbound sales rep at Klaviyo. And right away, just incredibly impressed with what was happening at Klaviyo. Everybody here truly believed that we were going to be the next big thing. And 1 week into the job while I was at Klaviyo, Shopify and MailChimp announced that they were breaking up. And so I was one of 5 like inbound BDRs, and our job was to answer anytime. Like we had a sales line that doesn't exist anymore, but used to be able to call into the Klaviyo sales line and get in touch with the inbound BDR. And we would send you over to an account executive, set up time for that. And so we were answering any call that came in. And most of the time it was someone looking to buy the platform, but oftentimes you got people looking for support or some weirdos that just wanted to chat. And then we had people that were requesting demos, creating accounts, browsing our website, and we were any way possible trying to get them in touch with sales reps. But when Shopify and MailChimp announced the breakup, we got an influx of thousands and thousands of leads. So for like a month straight, we were working on Saturdays to go through all the demand. And it was a ton of fun. It was the best like introduction I could have ever gotten to Klaviyo. I learned so much in that first week about our company, about our platform, about the challenges that our customers and prospects run into and why they seek out Klaviyo than I ever could have gotten just by doing the job in a normal time for that amount of time. As an inbound BDR, we didn't really have much of a partner program in place. We had something there, but we were really only communicating with the partners that were doing a lot of volume with us. There wasn't anything at scale for a partner program. And we would get questions all the time coming into that sales funnel. And I had no idea where to send like a marketing agency that had questions about partnering with us, or had more than just one client that they wanted to work with us and work with us at a greater scale. And so that's when I poked my head up and was like, hey, I think there's something going on in this partnerships team. And I found the right folks that were working on fixing the challenges there and joined the partnerships team as a BDR. And I was a BDR for about a year, and then I became a partner manager. And that's right around the time when I found Electric Marketing and started working with you. So our partnerships team saw a ton of growth. Like I was probably like the 10th employee at Klaviyo dedicated to partnerships. And one of the first things we did was build like an actual partner program that had a portal and had a process for being able to evaluate the type of value that we had with specific partners, mostly based on how much business someone was referring. But I think the key component was actually how many accounts is a partner managing on Klaviyo? And that's how we could actually qualify agencies and see who's managing a lot of customers on our platform and really understand who we should be working with and qualify them from there. So I was part of the process of like building out that whole onboarding process to find all of the new partners that are coming in inbound to us and filling out partner applications. And then also go out on the hunt and find some partners who should be in our partner program. And then take one step further and finding partners who just aren't working with Klaviyo today, but should be, because they have clients that would be a good fit and we can add value to them. And so that's kind of how my career started at Klaviyo. I know there was a second part to your question of like, what is a day in the life of a partner manager at Klaviyo?
Yeah.
The way I see my role is really being someone that our partners can trust at Klaviyo. Like I think that's the number one thing I can do as a partner manager to add value back to my partners is that like I'm your Klaviyo guy, right? Like you can come to me for anything and everything that's related to Klaviyo, and either I can answer that question and I pride myself on responding quickly, or I'll get in with the person at Klaviyo that is going to help you with your challenge or just strategize with you on what to do. Whether in your case, you've been great about providing feedback to us. And so looping you in with like our VP of SMS or product manager, so you can teach them what you think we should do when building our next features. Or if it's working with like a partner success manager, like Adam, our colleague, who's helping in like deliverability questions or strategy questions. At the end of the day, my main role is business development. Like I'm a quota carrying rep at Klaviyo, and I have sales that need to be driven through the partners I work with. But the way I go about that is just by being a great resource to my partners. And I feel like the numbers will come as a side effect to that.
Yeah, I feel like it's fascinating to me how your internal team is structured, just because when I am chatting to others in the space or whatever it may be, we sort of always use your organization as the gold standard for what a partner program can and should look like, both from the interaction and engagement on a like client success side of things, like working with Adam and team, being able to pull those strategic insights and essentially have like a part-time electric employee who's on the ground at Klaviyo and allows us to and pushes new features and functionality through our org is really valuable on your end with the sales support and everything else, and just helping us block and tackle like who should we be talking to about what, and then the way it's just structured in general in terms of the ability to provide us with real-time visibility into what we're tracking towards, both from like managed and referred MRR. I think the coolest thing that Klaviyo does is the managed, because nobody else really does that. And I'm always all over our other tech partners about how they're missing out on a lot there. And sure, it might be a little bit self-serving because we typically have more managed than referred, but I think that's a really sort of cool and unique feature. But for me, that visibility is super important because then we can have goals. And without that, I don't really know where we stand with certain tech partners. What do we need to prioritize? What do we not need to prioritize? So the ability to have that visibility is super important for us.
Yeah, exactly. It's really important to have that type of structure because your status in our partner program is important to you guys, right? Like you work with us extensively. You're recommending us extensively. It's also people come to you because of your ability to be able to work within Klaviyo, right? And so to have those guidelines and to be really prescriptive in how and what you need to do to get there is really important. Obviously, we're always reiterating what those qualifications are. We've changed them several times since I've been here. We're just looking at like the market, right? We're looking at the whole scope of our agency partners. What's going to benefit them the most if we make these certain requirements? And then also, what is our go-to market strategy? 2 years ago, there was no SMS requirement within our partner program. Now, to be a gold or platinum or elite partner, you have specific metrics that you need to hit for email and SMS in order to hit those qualifications, because that's our go-to-market strategy, right? Like we're selling not only email, we're also selling SMS. Eventually, there's going to be like a push component to it. Maybe there's a CDP component to it, and so on. As we continue to launch new products, we're going to be asking our partners to be able to launch those products with us, because you guys make up such a significant portion of our revenue, which is great, but you're also our greatest asset into going into expanding new markets and new products and so on, because you guys have that type of reach. You mentioned it earlier, but you see your Klaviyo reps as an extension of your team, right? Which is exactly what Adam and I are trying to do. Like we want to be in your org, we want to be reps for you guys, but we also see our agency partners as an extension of Klaviyo as a whole. You guys are essentially a microcosm of our go-to-market team: sales, support, success, marketing, right? And we have 12,000 agency partners across the board. We only have 1,600 employees. So if we're able to activate and engage with all of our agency partners and really make them extensions of our team, their reach combined is going to have a way bigger reach than what Klaviyo could ever have on its own. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why we invest in partnerships so much. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we try to give our partners all the tools to be able to work with us, because there's so much potential unlocked from having you guys working as an extension of us rather than just closing the door and letting you guys figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I think that's where we provide a lot of value as well to our clients and just the ecosystem as a whole. Like, sure, Klaviyo has rolled out these new features and functionality, but what does that actually mean to you? Like, how should you be implementing it? Why does it matter? What are the ways that we're testing it into our various clients? And so that's why, like, in my newsletter, I always have that section for app updates, and your team's always pushing out the product releases once a month. And so then I'll go through them and look at them and say, this is how we're going to deploy it throughout Electric. We might not be doing it quite yet because it literally was just released like yesterday, but these are the ways that you should be thinking about it for your brand. And so giving that level of sort of next steps and more of an application side of things, like approach, I think is really valuable and provides our team with a lot of insight. And they're sort of getting it from both Adam and me as well, and pushing that through our org.
Yeah. And honestly, that's an area of my role that I'm trying to get better at, right? Like, we ship so many new features all day long. It's difficult to keep track of. I can't imagine being in an agency's shoes where we're shipping features and all of your other tech partners are shipping new features as well. And your strategy team needs to be able to stay on top of that and implement and test and work them out. And so one thing I'm trying to do is just be more on top of all the new features that we're shipping and really understand them so I can quickly educate our partners on how to leverage them better and take advantage of those new features. The one good thing is, and I'm always really impressed by like our product team, our engineering team, our data science team. They A/B test and test these new features extensively to make sure that when we build a new feature, we're working with our customer base to test these out to make sure that they're providing a lift to the accounts that do implement them, right? So something like full page signup forms that was launched a couple months ago, there was something like a 2% lift across the board for anybody that started using full page signup forms. And a 2% lift on signup form submissions is huge. It's massive, right? And so with every new feature we launch, we're either launching it because it's going to make your lives easier, or we're launching it because it provides a lift in whatever that tool is. And so you can go in with confidence that you should test out these new features anytime they come about, because we're not just launching them willy-nilly here.
Yeah, and your ability to, we only have whatever it is, 40 or 45 clients. So we have sort of a sampling of data, but obviously we don't have the amount of data that you all have. And so the ability to tell us like, hey, we did this test and we saw the 2% lift across whatever number of merchants it is. Then we can take that and just roll with it. Like, we don't even need to do our own testing per se, because you already did it across a large sample size, made it statistically significant, and then we're off and running, deploying it through our clients. And then that lift in the signups leads to more growth on the Klaviyo platform. And I love seeing all of our Klaviyo accounts grow, because obviously that means the client's being more successful, but then also it means that Klaviyo is making more money off of said clients.
Yeah, it's a good situation. And again, the great thing about our partnerships team is that when a brand leverages a Klaviyo agency, they have significantly less churn, and they grow faster, and they have better product adoption rates. They have better deliverability rates, right? So it speaks to how talented our agency partners are in managing accounts. The economics of our partners working within Klaviyo are incredible. Literally, like, accounts grow faster, which increases Klaviyo MRR. They churn less, which also increases our retention, right? And so it makes so much sense to invest in you guys, because you guys can do a way better job managing these accounts than standard brands can do on their own in most cases, because you guys work across so many different brands. You see what works. It's really impressive what you're able to do.
Yeah, I was talking to another tech partner about their very early on, like very early stage, because obviously a very important factor in the success of any software is how people use it. Like just because you download it or sign up doesn't mean the results are just going to generate themselves. You need to actually use Klaviyo. And if you just use it to send a text and email once a month, obviously it's not going to produce the ROI that it should. So for this other tech partner, it was like, how do we go about building out that customer success function? Like, I don't even know if I would. I'd more so just align strategically with certain agencies who see the value in the tool, get them up and running, and then they sort of operate as your preferred implementation partner, which is something you see as well with like Shopify Plus or Salesforce Commerce Cloud, or like you're actually getting co-sold to from not only the software, but hey, this is the implementation partner that's going to help you deploy this new tool or technology. I think that makes a lot more sense because from a software perspective, if you have both in-house, for one, you have to maintain all that, you got to train it, you have to deal with the customer service. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world. It's kind of a pain in the ass. The agency life is a little bit of a grind sometimes. So you really want to internalize that. And then let's say you end up with a customer success manager who just doesn't mesh well with the client. And then they churn, but they're not only churning from customer success manager, they're churning from the platform. And the platform MRR is where all the value is from an enterprise standpoint for the business. So why would you risk that? Like if you have agency partners, they'll just move on to another agency, or they'll just move on to somebody else who can service the platform. It doesn't end up being the platform's fault. It ends up being somebody else's fault. So I think for those two main reasons, it makes a lot more sense to empower agencies versus having to try and build out your own internal customer success team.
Yeah. I think one of the best strategic decisions we made a few years ago was to go all in on partnerships, right? As you said, like the agency life is a grind. Now think about a SaaS company trying to make a services division. Like it's two completely different types of businesses that you have to run. And we see a lot of our competitors offer white glove service and offer services. And we think that's really bad for two reasons. A, you're cutting out your partners, right? Like that business should be going to your partners, because if that's the case, you're now a platform, right? The entities around your product will be getting more value and more revenue from working with Klaviyo than Klaviyo will get itself, which will make us a true platform when customers, agencies, and tech partners are all making money on top of Klaviyo without Klaviyo having to have its hand out. And then B, a services model is just really difficult to run. And as you said, you'll see churn, not just on the platform side, but on the services side as well. Because in the short term, like it's like, hey, we can get some revenue from this right away. But in the long term, it's really, really difficult to scale. The only way you're going to be able to scale a SaaS product with a services model is by hiring more people, right? Without a services model like what Klaviyo has, we don't need to hire more people. We need to work with more agency partners, right? And so our agency partners are then going to do the services for us. And the more business we can bring back to them, the better it's going to be in the long run. Now, bringing business to agency partners, as you and I know, is a challenge, right? Like we have a pretty good process for that today. We've obviously sent some clients your way and you've done incredible work with them, but we don't have like a standardized process for that. And there's over 100,000 brands using Klaviyo. There's way more potential to bring brands into the fold with our agency partners. I would love to see who's done that really, really well in the past. I really don't think there's any company that's in our position like ours today. But that's something that we got to learn and figure out on how to do and make a better process for, because I really do think that could unlock a lot of growth for brands introduced to you guys.
Yeah. And it's sort of a one-to-many philosophy. So as opposed to hiring a customer success manager, you're still sourcing clients as well. Like you plug in with an agency, you now just got access to all their clients, all their team members, and it's just sort of this flywheel that is significantly more impactful than bringing on individual team members and having to like staff that internally. So you've obviously shown that strategy works. But there's so many other things that have to go into it as well. I mean, like the product has to be good first and foremost. Like you grow your way to being a successful technology company by just having a good partner program. Because if you like, we wouldn't partner with Klaviyo if the platform was shit. And like they're like so many of these side partners I've talked to, like up and coming ones, are like, well, what do you think about commissions? I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the industry standard is that there will be something, but you're not going to move the needle by having 40% versus 20% or 30%. Like maybe you would a little bit if there's like you're neck and neck with some other top competitor. And for an agency, you're like, well, this one is going to support me more, both from mission standpoint and this and that. But that's just like table stakes. That has nothing to do with whether or not the platform is being recommended. And so I think a lot of new startups get too caught up in how do we incentivize agencies versus let's make a really great product. And then from there, we'll expand into how we build these agency relationships. Because let's say there was not that this would happen at this stage, but let's say there was like a Klaviyo competitor that came out tomorrow and was like, you know what, this is obviously the better use case for our clients. Like we're going to move. And that should be the expectation on both sides. That will just like if we didn't service a Klaviyo prospect well, then we'll stop getting referrals. You'll move on to other agency partners or other potential solutions. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the product and the service that's being provided to the client, not any of this other stuff.
Right. Yeah. I think you just described the nature of like a competitive market, right? If someone's falling off, you're just going to find the best alternative out there. But one thing I think that's important to remember is that the product's got to be good, but it's also got to be easy to use, and the users need to know how to use it, right? Mm-hmm. There's been plenty of competitors we've gone up against. There's been plenty of other platforms that may have some really, really cool features and may be really, really good. But overall, those platforms are typically really challenging to use, and their users can't invest or can't find the right people, whatever it is, they can't get the most out of that platform because of its complexity. And I think the greatest thing that we can do is just continue to create all the enablement materials that we have created and make the platform super easy. And you've been in the platform a long time. You've seen so many updates. You've seen probably a lot of like the guided nudges in the platform where it's like, hey, you should try this form feature, or it's like, hey, we know this is going on, you should get this working, or it's like, hey, this email campaign was really, really good. We repurposed it and made some copy for you to send an SMS message with this because we think it's going to convert, especially if you send to this audience. So there's a guided software component that's been layered into Klaviyo that's really designed to help people to go from 0 to 100 really quick, right? Another thing that, I think the market views us as kings in the email space for D2C, for like the SMB space entirely, right? I don't think that anyone would argue against that statement. SMS, we've had an uphill mountain to climb, right? There was other competitors that were first to the space that had really good products. And one of the common complaints we hear about our product is that like, it's just not easy to set up. It's not easy to use. So I feel like we've gone a long way into fixing that. But another thing that we're beginning to roll out this month and next is SMS playbooks. So again, make the platform super easy to use so that when someone logs in and sets up SMS, you just got to click through the checklist to make sure you're doing things the right way, and you can get going faster and know that you're making the right decisions that's going to lead to revenue and a better ROI, rather than spinning your wheels, figuring out how to do it, going through help center docs and so on. And so as we've been saying, I think the number one thing someone can focus on is making a good platform and making it easy to use. Once you get that fire going, partnerships is that gasoline on the fire, right? That's going to take you to that next level, but you need to have a strong foundation first.
Yeah. I mean, the guided sort of recommendations are really valuable, I think. I personally, but this is just me, whenever I log into new software and it's like, hey, do you want to take the tour? Do you want to do these things? And I'm like, no, like leave me alone. Like
immediately.
I'm going to dig in here myself and figure out how to use it because I just want to tinker with it and see how things work. And I feel like so many times when softwares do that guided onboarding process or whatever, it's so damn surface level and doesn't actually provide any real insights or value. Whereas like with Klaviyo, you actually are taking some sort of real data component to it. Like, hey, X, Y, and Z happened, so you should be doing this. And it's just different than, hey, go to this browser or click this, click that type of thing.
we don't have one of those guided like onboarding things when you create a new account, right? Like what I'm referencing is that once you have flows set up, once you're sending campaigns
exactly.
set up, we're now making suggestions for what you should do. But I'm in the same boat. Like anytime you go on a new website, it's like, check this out. Or like Salesforce does this all the time. It's so annoying. They update like their Lightning portal. And it's like, let us take a spin through the platform so you can see it. And like, you just want to X out of it every single time.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. So I'm glad that you guys don't have that. But I will say, I mean, it's funny thinking about how we only really started using Klaviyo like 2.5 years ago. And when I first logged in, sort of my initial hesitation was like, oh shit, like I need to dig in here and figure out what's going on. Like it was not as intuitive or easy to use as it is today. Both from the way it looks to the way I'm able to interact with it. So that was like my only hesitation when we first started using Klaviyo. Yeah, because we originally, like 3 years ago, we primarily used HubSpot because at the time it wasn't as crazy of a contrast because the integrations weren't as in depth as they are now, and obviously the product has evolved. It'd be cool to see like a product development timeline. Actually, now that I think about it, just to see the rapid pace of innovation there. But regardless,
you should sit on one of AB's calls that we do on Fridays for our Bido numbers. He typically takes us through history lessons, but the early versions of Klaviyo, it's very obvious that it was built entirely by some really, really smart engineers. We didn't have a UX or UI team back in the day, right? Like it was totally engineers. And like the most important thing was making sure you guys had really good data and a really good segmentation engine, right? And then we built the applications on top of that. But I don't know if it was all that important. Now you've seen a lot of changes in the past year, especially where we've made it a bit prettier inside the platform. And yeah, obviously just continue to try to make that UI easier to use.
So to hop back over to the partnership side of things, I guess, because it feels like maybe the partner program is one of the only ones in the ecosystem that's starting to mature. Where do you go from here? Do you start creating new partner tiers? Do you just continue to build out even more and more, I guess, partners and the partner team? What are the priorities and how are you looking at evolving this year? As I'd say, like the preeminent leader when it comes to just partnerships in general in the Shopify ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a few really big rocks, right? Really big initiatives that we're working on this year. Just to present like the whole scope of things, right? We have 12,000 agency partners that are like formal partners with us. I would say about 75% of those partners have been active with us in the past year, meaning they've logged into the portal, they've logged into Klaviyo, they've submitted a lead and so on. That's still a significant amount, right? I don't think anybody would expect 100%. And then of that, right, like we have our 4 different tiers. We have silver, gold, platinum, and elite. Within all of those tiers, we have advisor and master, right? Whether you're just a referring partner or you're referring as well as managing. Electric, you guys are an elite master partner, right? Which is the highest tier you can get at Klaviyo. And if you remember, right, like you were in one of the first batches of elite partners. You were the second batch of elite partners. It's a very new tier. I don't think we're going to make a tier beyond elite, right? Like we're not going to expand it in that area. But we do want elite to be elite. We have 20 that are at that tier. It's a very selective group. And it's intentional in that way. We want to find the agencies that are the best of the best, right? And while you hadn't been around the longest, you aligned yourself with what we were doing so well, right? Which was our tech partner strategy and being able to leverage everything. And the performance that you guys had in Klaviyo accounts was just so impressive that you absolutely deserve to be called an elite partner, where there's other partners that get there by referring and managing a ton of business, right? And they're also very, very good at what they do, but they're aligned with our go-to-market org, right? And they're going out and hunting new accounts for us. And so when it comes to tiering, that's a little bit of it. As I mentioned, like we're continuing to iterate on like the partner program, and we release a new version of our partner program every year, typically after Q1, with updates on what we're doing. Last year, if you remember right, like MDF was the talk of the town. Marketing development funds, for folks who don't know, that's when Klaviyo will be like, all right, Brandon, you have an idea for a marketing event. You want to host like a box suite at a Heat game and invite a bunch of brands to this. And this is going to be a Klaviyo sponsored electric marketing event at this game. And we're just going to get a lead list at the end of the day. And we'll give you $10,000 to go out and run that event as long as you're talking about Klaviyo with these brands and we're able to prove that there was an ROI to this event, right? And so like last year, marketing development funds was like the big new thing that our partner program was offering. And we were trying to get a lot of events going and give people the capital to be able to do that. We took a lot of learnings from that last year, and now we're refining that process, right? And doing more of an ecosystem marketing approach, a lot more accounts-based marketing in ABM events in that sense. But some of the big things that we're really pushing this year is focusing on the mid-market, right? And so what that changes from a partner perspective, I don't think changes much in terms of like requirements for new partners or requirements for existing partners and qualifications there. I really just think it changes in how we operate. And again, the way a lot of us know Klaviyo is as that e-commerce marketing automation platform for email, specifically for Shopify, right? That's not who we are at all. That's not who we were last year, and that's not who we're going to be next year, right? We are great in the SMB space, but mid-market enterprise was our fastest growing customer segment last year. And while Shopify merchants makes up a large portion of our business, we have integrations with Salesforce Commerce Cloud, BigCommerce, Magento, WooCommerce, PrestaShop, Wix. We're building integrations with Commerce Tools, VTEX, Square. And so there's a whole scope outside of Shopify that we work with. And so the biggest trend that I think you'll see this year from Klaviyo partnerships is like educating the masses of our partner program that there's a whole world outside of Shopify out there. There's a much larger market outside of Shopify than there is within Shopify. And then we're also moving to the mid-market, right? And those are the areas where we think there's the most revenue for us to grab. And that's obviously where our partners are going to be able to grab a lot of revenue too, just by working with those merchants. And now that's not to say we're going against Shopify. We love Shopify. They've invested in us. They've been great partners for a long time to come. But to be a sustainable, great platform, we need to have market share distributed evenly across a bunch of different sources. And so we have huge emphasis on going after larger merchants, as well as expanding our scope on different technologies. And those are the biggest things. And then to take it back to the partnerships perspective, I don't think we'll necessarily have qualifications of like X amount of MRR needs to be brought in off of Shopify or anything like that. But I think we will continue to make qualifications specifically for SMS. We're rolling out a push notification product later this quarter into next quarter. There may be some qualifications around that. And then again, when we roll out the CDP, there'll be qualifications there. And then just continue to try and offer a great onboarding and enablement process for new partners is going to be a big focus of ours as well.
I think what could be interesting is like you have maybe a Klaviyo Elite partner tier, but for Salesforce, or you have a Klaviyo Elite partner tier for Shopify, because like there's obviously it's completely different. And the way we position ourselves, we're working with brands like you work with us. If you're on Shopify, and we're not just doing things within your Shopify account, we're making holistic recommendations across your entire tech stack. And that's where we can really add value, because then all that data flows into Klaviyo. But if you came to us and you're on Salesforce or you're on BigCommerce, we're not going to be able to do that to that level. And so I don't think we would like that would be the distinguishment there, I think. Which could be interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. I had thought that like we should have different badges for like email and SMS if there's someone that like really excels in one or the other. But that's also a really good idea. When we think about badging and tiers, we really don't want to like dilute the value of what it is, right? Like you're at Elite. I think you'd be upset if tomorrow we had 50 new Elite partners for all these different types of platforms, right? Like we don't want to dilute that value that you've earned. But one thing I think people should understand is that it's difficult to become a platinum Klaviyo partner, right? It's pretty difficult. I don't know the exact numbers on how many we have, but we have 100 or so, probably a little bit more than that. And then it's incredibly difficult to get to that elite tier, right? As I mentioned, we have less than 20. So when we think about tiering, we definitely want to keep, make it strict to get to those tiers, because it is something that partners should value, and it should be a selling point when you guys are talking to brands.
It's a huge selling point. Not only in terms of getting inbound, but also in terms of being able to get deals across the line as well.
Yeah.
All the certifications. I mean, because
I'm just thinking now.
Something.
Oh, sorry for interrupting.
No,
but I was just thinking now, like one of the big focuses on our partner program this year is like taking what has traditionally been like an SMB, like small to medium sized business process of partnerships for us, and making it more of like a mid-market process, right? And I think we do that a little bit today. But a big focus of ours is going to figure out how to do co-marketing better, how to do account mapping better, and how to do co-selling better, right? Our process for co-selling is a bit interesting, because in a lot of partner programs, the partner needs to like source and close the deal on their own. Whereas in our situation, our reps aren't competing against you, they're working with you. So our reps close the deals with your help. But we need to figure out how to go to like big merchants and co-pitch Electric and Klaviyo coming in, being like, hey, we're the software and this is the implementation service provider, as you mentioned earlier, and go out and do that. So again, that's another area I think from a partnership standpoint we're going to be focusing on a lot, and trying to like figure out how to flex that muscle and do it well with our top partners.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Before we hop off, is there any sort of last things that you want to call out or drop in here, or at the very least let people know where they can find you online if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, I thank you so much for having me, Brandon. The only thing I want to drop is that if anybody's looking to understand how to squeeze the most juice out of Klaviyo, go to Electric Marketing, get a tech stack audit, learn what is possible by not just leveraging Klaviyo, but leveraging all of the partners in that Shopify tech ecosystem. You won't regret it. But appreciate you having me on. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Dan Deren. You can search out whatever it is. And it was good seeing you last week, Brandon. I'm sure we'll see each other soon.
In about a month here now. So
yeah,
I'll be bearing the cold in Boston. Well, thank you everybody for listening. As always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.